Jalen Chatfield is going to have to send Brandon Duhaime a Father's Day card. The Washington Capitals clinch the Eastern Conference, and Kane's Twitter once again teaches everyone that you should never count your chickens before they hatch. Caps win 5-4 in a shootout over the Carolina Hurricanes. They clinch, the Washington Capitals do, the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And perhaps more importantly, for the last 40 minutes of this hockey game, the Washington Capitals, they got back to, after the great chase, Alex Ovechkin's record chasing down Wayne Gretzky, obviously. That has been a little bit of a distraction in a positive way, of course, but also in a negative way, as the Caps had somewhat gotten outside of their team game, their structure, looking to feed Alex Ovechkin to get him that goal, to get him to that record, right? So they had gotten outside of their structure a little bit. Spencer Carberry admitted that, leading up to catching and surpassing Wayne Gretzky. So perhaps the biggest positive from this game tonight was that for the last 40 minutes, baby, Washington Capitals hockey was back. They were all over the Carolina Hurricanes for the last 40 minutes of this hockey game. And even though the Hurricanes, they did get a couple of goals in the third period to tie this thing up, that was not indicative at all of the run of play over the final 40 minutes. Even in that third period where the Hurricanes got those 2 goals, the Caps, like I said, were all over them. Several posts and crossbars hit by the Caps in this game, or else the score could have been a lot worse for the Hurricanes. So yeah, just really, really encouraging seeing the Capitals get back to their game, back to their style of play over the final 40 minutes. Let's get into it, babes. So the Caps, right? They are short-handed for this game. Still no Logan Thompson and still no Alexei Protas. And now Jacob Chychrun is out as well, though thankfully in his case it is just due to an illness and not another injury. And if you have ever watched the Washington Capitals before, right? Like if this is not your first day as a fan of this team, then you are probably well aware that this is always what they look like after a lengthy pregame ceremony. It is always a sleepy start. They are always down on the scoreboard after the first 20 minutes. And today, of course, was the ceremony honoring Alex Ovechkin for surpassing Wayne Gretzky on the NHL's all-time goals list. And so, just as you might have guessed, it was a very sleepy start after a very emotional pre-game ceremony. So first period, the Carolina Hurricanes, they get the game's first power play. The Caps have a good penalty kill, but then get scored on right as the penalty expires on what was kind of a weird goal. It looked initially like Charlie Lindgren had made the save, but then he kind of pushes the puck into his own net, or fumbles it into his own net, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. And so yeah, the Canes, unfortunately, are up 1-0. But then it is Brandon Duhaime barking at Jalen Chatfield to drop his gloves, and these two are going to go here. And you might remember that this is a consequence for Jalen Chatfield of his bullshit UFC leg sweep takedown of the youngster Connor McMichael when these two teams played against each other last week. And Brandon Duhaime starts off the fight by landing 9 straight punches straight to Chatfield's head. Chatfield then swings once, and then Duhaime gets him again with the right hook and takes him down, much to the delight of the Capital One Arena crowd. So 10 of the 11 total punches thrown were thrown by Brandon Duhaime, and then he scores the takedown at the end as well. And he didn't even need a slew foot to do it. Imagine that. Carolina then later in the period, they are going to get kind of a bullshit goal here to let them go up 2-0. Tom Wilson, right? He is on the back check, skating back hard, and he hammers down Jackson Blake of the Hurricanes. Charlie Lindgren has already made the save on Jackson Blake at this point. So Charlie Lindgren, he is holding on to that puck. He has it secured, tied up against him. This is a frozen puck. And the hit by Tom Wilson occurs after that, right? Like I said, he blasts Jackson Blake, unfortunately, into his own net. They kind of went crashing into the net. And Jackson Blake bowls over Charlie Lindgren. Charlie Lindgren gets bowled over, right? And he ends up in the Washington Capitals net. The puck as well ends up with Charlie Lindgren in the net. Seeing as how, like I said, he had it secured up against him, having already made that save on Jackson Blake. And so I fully understand that Tom Wilson is the one who pushed Jackson Blake into Charlie Lindgren here. And so don't get me wrong, it should not be a goaltender interference penalty on Jackson Blake. But that's besides the point, right? Like, Charlie Lindgren had this puck already well secured before this collision even takes place. He has already made that save. He has the puck secured. He has already frozen this puck. So the play should have been dead already. And lots of times what you will see in this scenario is that even if they are not going to call a goaltender interference penalty on a play like this, which, like I said, I don't think that they should have called a goaltender interference penalty on this play because Tom Wilson does push Jackson Blake into Charlie Lindgren. But what you will 99 times out of 100 see in a scenario like this, then if they are not calling a penalty for goaltender interference, is that that so-called goal obviously will not count because they rule it incidental contact with the goaltender. And like I said, even that point is besides the point because the main point, right, is that Charlie Lindgren had this puck secured. He had it frozen. The whistle should have already blown as he had full control of that puck. Charlie Lindgren did before this collision even happens, before he even gets pushed anywhere near the goal line. So I honestly went to the kitchen at this point here to grab a snack because I was just waiting for Charlie Lindgren to get a hold of himself there after that collision. And then I assumed that we would be having a defensive zone face-off. I come back from the kitchen and they are apparently reviewing this play here to see if the puck ever fully crossed the goal line. And I'm like, what the fuck does that matter? Charlie Lindgren already had the puck secured. He already had it frozen. They review it and they decide to give the Hurricanes a free goal here. And so they go up 2-0. Caps, thankfully though, they do get a goal back before the end of the first period. Pierre-Luc Dubois, his 20th of the season. Beautiful net driving play by Pierre-Luc Dubois, just crashing the net hard there to take the pass from Andrew Mangiapane. And he beats Frederik Andersen, the Hurricanes netminder, to cut the Canes lead in half, like I said, before the end of the first period. So the primary assist, like I said, to Andrew Mangiapane, and Rasmus Sandin as well on the secondary assist on that goal. And that is a big goal. It is Pierre-Luc's like I said, 20th goal of the season, but it is a big goal as well because, like I said, it cuts the Canes lead in half here just as we're coming to the end of the first period, and there is still 40 minutes left to play in this hockey game. Let's see if the Caps can turn it around in the final 40. Second period, Ryan motherfucking Leonard, baby. He draws a power play for his Capitals here by sending Lars Eller in on a semi-breakaway using a ridiculous between the legs, no look, backwards pass on his backhand, sends Eller in all alone, and Eller gets chopped to prevent him putting the puck into the open net. And so the Caps are getting a power play here. That is several times already during his first 5 games in the National Hockey League that Ryan Leonard has drawn a power play for his Caps. This kid just affects the game in so many positive ways. Even when he is not getting on the score sheet himself, he is such an impact player. And the Caps score on that power play that Ryan Leonard drew after Captain Alex Ovechkin absolutely hammers 2 Hurricanes players with huge hits. The crowd is still chanting OV, OV, OV as Dylan Strome deposits the puck into the Hurricanes net 2-2. That's Dylan Strome's 26th goal of the season already. And yeah, Alex Ovechkin, he picks up the only assist on that goal. And by the way, that is 39-year-old Alex Ovechkin just casually hitting 70 points this season, despite the fact that he missed a quarter of the season with a broken leg. Had he been able to play in all 82 games, he would have been on pace for roughly 93 points, like I said, as a 39-year-old. And then we have got fourth line center Nick Dowd setting a new career high in goals with his 14th goal of this season. Picks up the rebound of a Brandon Duhaime shot and roofs it past Freddie Anderson. 3-2 Caps. Assists on that goal, obviously, to Brandon Duhaime and to John Carlson as well. And then just 38 seconds after that, we have got Tom Wilson with his 33rd goal of the season already. And I have to point out here that the Carolina Hurricanes official Twitter account, or X account now, I suppose, they had sent out a tweet after Tom Wilson had hit, whatever you want to call it, Jackson Blake into Charlie Lindgren, causing that controversial goal, which ultimately was reviewed and deemed to count for the Hurricanes. They had sent out a tweet on that goal for themselves, reading something along the lines of, assisted by number 43 on Washington. So they sent out what they thought was a clever tweet. Evidently, it wasn't clever enough, though, as they forgot to mention that Tom Wilson would indeed be the leading goal scorer on their shitty team. 33 tucks for Tom Wilson this season. Seth Jarvis leads the Hurricanes with 31. So sometimes, you can just leave that tweet in the drafts and save yourselves a whole bunch of embarrassment when later in the same game, Tom Wilson does something like this. He takes the pass here from Connor McMichael off the wall in the Hurricane zone. And Tom Wilson, he basically just decided, you know what? Yes, I am scoring right now. Get out of my way, right? Like, he beats every single Hurricanes player to the net here. He turns on the Jets. What speed by Tom Wilson from 0 to 60 right away here. Just turns on the Jets, like accelerates like crazy, beats all the Hurricanes, like I said, to the net. Get out of my way, essentially. He just pushes through them, bullies his way to the Hurricanes net. He gets the initial shot off on Frederik Andersen. Andersen stops that one, but then Tom Wilson, like I said, bullying his way right to the net front there. He picks up his own rebound. No one can stop this guy, and he just tucks it in behind Freddie Andersen. So 33rd goal, like I said, of this season already for Tom Wilson. Connor McMichael gets the only assist on that goal. The beautiful play, like I said, off the wall there for Mikey. Great play all around by both of those guys. And it puts the Caps up here 4-2. So just a dominant performance here by the Washington Capitals. 4 unanswered goals, coming back from down 2-0 to put themselves up 4-2. And yeah, baby, that is how the second period would end. Third period, like I said, the Hurricanes pretty lucky to tie this thing up here, as the Caps really continued to cave the Hurricanes in the final 20 minutes. But the Hurricanes, they get a pretty lucky goal for their third goal of the night. It's just kind of a floating wrist shot from the blue line, from the point there, sneaks its way through past all of those bodies and beats Charlie Lindgren. So that makes it 4-3. And then the Caps, they have one brain fart at the end of the game there where they give the Hurricanes a wide open chance. They tie it up 4-4. And so we are going to overtime. And overtime solves nothing. And so we are going to a shootout here. Dreaded words, right, for Capitals fans? But not tonight, baby. As the Caps, obviously, they have not been good in shootouts all season long. They haven't had very many of them, but when they have not been great. That is probably putting it lightly. That's putting it gently, I would say. But yeah, the only team More inept in the shootout than the Washington Capitals is the Carolina Hurricanes. The Caps get 1 goal in the shootout by Pierre-Luc Dubois, and that is all they would need, baby, as Charlie Lindgren, he stops all of the Hurricane shooters. And so the Caps win the shootout 1-0. And more importantly, they win the game 5-4. All right, babes, that is going to be it for this one. What a game. A very fun game to watch for sure. And yeah, the pregame ceremony was amazing. So great to see that for Alex Ovechkin. The Washington Capitals do such a great job with those ceremonies, honoring milestones and things like that. And this is about the biggest milestone that you can have. And they did a great job, like I said, with the pregame ceremony. It was very emotional. I really enjoyed watching it. It was just awesome to see. And yeah, the Caps, they started slow, obviously, in the game, as they so often do after these lengthy pregame ceremonies. But they picked it up, like I said, in the final 40 minutes, kicked the crap out of the Hurricanes for the last 40, essentially. Like I said, the Hurricanes coming back in the third period, really not indicative at all of how that final 40 minutes was played. The Caps were very, very good, and it was very encouraging to see them get back to their game in that final 40 minutes after, like I said, they have been going through a bit of a slow stretch here, right? Other than Alex Ovechkin chasing Wayne Gretzky, they've just been kind of off, right? Like you could feel it, like I said, that they were all just kind of trying to feed him. Everybody wanted to get him the puck. Everybody wanted to make this record happen for him and for the fans. And you could definitely tell, right? Like they were overcompensating a little bit, that is for sure. And like I said, that's probably putting it lightly. So now we get back to business, right? With Ovechkin now having officially surpassed Wayne Gretzky for the NHL's, like I said, all-time goals lead. So now, yeah, back to business, baby. That's really all there is to say with the playoffs right around the corner. And this was a great step in the right direction for the Washington Capitals. These final 40 minutes tonight here, like I said, great job by them. So, babes, as always, thank you all so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please click on that like button down below. If you really enjoyed it, please click on that subscribe button for me as well if you have not already done so. We are going to be doing every Washington Capitals game here from now through the end of the regular season, and then obviously into the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. So click on that subscribe button, like I said, if you have not already done so. And if you want to join us here for this ride, what will hopefully be a long ride for the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup playoffs this season. So great chatting with you, babes. As always, it has been a real blast here this season so far, hoping that they can keep it up, like I said, well into April, May, and June. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I really can't say that enough times. I appreciate you all so much. Until next time, babes. And as always, let's go, Caps.